to all our viewers who are watching us live right now from wherever you are. I'm so much excited to have you today. We have a very special guest, and the first time maybe in this short tech business, we were talking nothing much but Zimbabwe technological and the business sector as far as our economy is concerned. Today we've got a very special guest with us, who's the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce CEO, Mr. Christopher Takunda Mugaga. Said, thank you so much for having us live, IJ.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
We are excited. We need to talk about a lot of things that are going on as far as our Zimbabwean ecosystem is concerned. I know there's been a lot that has been happening, and this week is probably one of the busiest ever weeks as far as our economy is concerned.
Yes.
And you are the CEO for one of the most critical organizations, that's the Chamber of Commerce here in Zimbabwe. Let's dive straight into the recent pronouncements that have been made by Zimbabwean government. First was the Minister of Information. After that, we saw the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe coming in as well to cement the same position. Your take on this, what does this really mean, and how does this affect Zimbabwean economy?
Well, I think if you look at the recent pronouncements, especially by the government of Zimbabwe regarding the mobile money platforms and also the shutting off of the stock market, I think you can see how it was received by the market. It was received in bad taste, given the implications of shutting down any platforms, especially which are a conduit for investment to a country like Zimbabwe, which is desperately seeking foreign direct investment at this hour. So, unfortunately, I think it came out too late, too wrong time, and it was not well received. As Chamber of Commerce, having conversations with the outside world, trying to understand the developments on what is taking place, having a conversation, even surprisingly hearing that the man at the helm of the stock exchange in Zimbabwe, who is the CEO there, only picked the story on national news that the stock market has been closed. So if you look at all these facts, I think they are not painting a good picture in terms of our policy land, in terms of our hastening. There could be challenges, yes, to do with some of the platforms, especially the mobile money platform. But the best way to deal with challenges is not through boxing or in other ways where you just push for a position unilaterally without conversation. Because what defines nations, what defines foreign direct investment is certainly that communication strategy which is genuine, which is sincere, and which is clear. But events on the ground so far regarding the shutting of the mobile money platform, don't worry about maybe the relaxation after a few hours. Even the stock market is not coming as good news, especially to the investment world.
Your understanding, naturally, we saw EcoCash and should I say maybe the Cassava family responding initially saying that we do not take orders from the Ministry of Information. That's not our line ministry. We rather listen to the parent ministry, which they are regulated under the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, the RBZ. I just want to be a little bit mischievous and understand. It looked like there was not formal communication from the right channels, so we saw the party, or should I say maybe the government via the Minister of Information issuing a statement, and then the RBZ played like it was playing a little catch-up, then it cemented or affirmed their position. Do you smell a rat there? Do you think that they'd initially agreed as a government position, or somebody to then come in and cement the same decision?
I think if you look at the record of circulars, especially from the central bank for the past months, I just wanted to feel like maybe the central bank was getting tired of announcing policies which confused the market. So the only way somehow to redeem their credibility was to delegate this to the spokesperson, who is Nick Mangwana. But at the same time, I think I understand the Cassava position. I think you heard I spoke about the clear communication strategy, which is also sincere. It's vital in any economy, in Zimbabwe included. So when you see the government through its spokesperson talking about monetary fiscal issues, definitely it becomes so worrisome, because the biggest assumption, regardless of whether he has ability to understand the issues, we feel like he's a novice on issues. So for him to be the spokesperson on it when there's a central bank, when regulators are there, you talk of the Securities Exchange Commission, there's no communication coming from all those vital institutions in this whole chain of confusion. So yes, I want to believe Cassava's stance on not taking orders, especially from Nick Mangwana's office, is commendable. It's welcome. It's also a message to the government.
That next time, please.
To learn how to communicate, especially to the market. But at the same time, it's so shocking. I think you heard I alluded to a case where the stock exchange CEO will say, I only learned of this close of the stock exchange through a news at 8 rather, ZBC. But alone
There was no formal
can
way he
tell
was
you
informed,
that
yeah.
it seems people sometimes are healing. They seem to be talking but not hearing each other. That's our problem at the moment. So definitely, if you were to ask my opinion on this, a very wrong move to even shut the stock market. It doesn't matter whether you feel like the stock market had been a conduit for any poor behavior. We're still to hear statements like, we're having fake counters. I heard about fake counters, but if you delve down to look at what is called fake counters, it is said your fungible stocks, your old mutual, your PPC, some of the counters which had been claimed to be somehow driving the money supply in the economy.
Yeah.
It's bad. Imagine to the world when you hear that Zimbabwe has got a fake account, a fake counter which is trading. Who will have appetite to enter such a market?
Sorry,
a ghost market.
I want to keep you there. We have got lots of viewers. Some of them, they're just basic and general Zimbabweans. Let's talk about the fake counters. What does that mean in a layman's language? Please move us from the economic and the business technician. I need our people there to be able to understand exactly what this means. What does that really mean when we're talking about these fake counters?
Yes, so when we're saying fake account here, you and I think we are on the same boat in terms of not appreciating what is meant by the fake account in relation to this issue we are talking about.
Yeah.
But presumably, like I'm hinting, to say maybe there could be a thinking that some companies which seems not to be existing, or some companies which are not supposed to be doing what they are doing what they are doing. So in other words, the breaking of laws in terms of how to trade in stocks. But if counters are to do that, the best solution is not in shutting the whole market. Can you imagine? You see a pufferder, a snake in your house. What's the next move? You burn the whole house because you want to deal with the pufferder which had gone into the bedroom or somewhere. That's very unfortunate. So I think the stance by government is not something we really look at and smile at. Our message to those who are listening, especially within the corridors of power, is if you're serious about Zimbabwe is open for business, if you're serious about the investment climate, stop that language of speaking down to business. The language of unilaterally making decisions, in the sense thinking that maybe you have all the solutions. If the foreign currency or the foreign exchange auction system is to operate, the best solution does not lie in silencing whatever you think are the threats to its existence, and you think that's the only way you can push it ahead. That will be fatalistic, very toxic in its own way. Because when you see the market behaving the way it is doing, it's a function of the fundamentals of the realities in Zimbabwe's market. In 2010-11, when Zimbabwe was experiencing a deflation, prices were going down. No company had appetite or even capacity to talk of profiteering. So when you see companies profiteering, companies taking advantage of the stock exchange to push away their funds. Remember, we've got trapped deposits because of the Zim dollar and shortage of foreign currency. The only way most investors could take their money out of the country was through the fungible stocks, your old mutual, your PPC. That was the only way you could invest outside Zimbabwe, rather through taking your money outside through using those channels. But shutting all that means it's a fight. There's no sincerity in solving the problem. The appetite is in dealing with what are considered to be malcontents in the economy, and that will not solve Zimbabwe's economic challenges.
So what's happening right now? I know the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, that's where almost all our public listed companies are. What's happening right now? I need to understand. It's been shut, it's been closed, there's no activity? What does this really mean?
There's a circular which came out from Mr. Bwani, the chief executive of the stock exchange, clearly spelling out that it had been closed for indefinite period, which already is proving the level of what we consider to be catatonic policy uncertainty currently obtaining in this economy, where you don't know what tomorrow will be like. In fact, for the past 3 months, I had trended and understood from the trend analysis that every Friday, the Zimbabwean market is expecting a very big bang policy announcement. Either it comes from the central bank, either it comes from the fiscal policy, or even it comes from other politicians outside these two levers of economic policies. So that alone, my brother, is not sending right signals to the outside world, let alone to the domestic investment, because our members, who are the members of the Chamber of Commerce, time and again they'll be knocking our doors asking, so if I had invested my money on the stock market and I'm hearing that the stock market had been closed, so what does it mean for my investment?
That's my next question. What does that mean?
What does it mean for the investment? But
what
then
does that purely mean?
you also don't want to mislead your members to just calm them when government is not talking to you on their next move. So it's communication which is a challenge here. Time and again, right now as we are facing a midterm budget, the Minister of Finance will be coming to us and say, can you give us your submissions in terms of how we move the economy? But when they make such decisions, they don't consult us. So definitely I think there is miscommunication, there is lack of respect among different stakeholders. Just recently you saw the COVID-19 allowances where civil servants will be paid $75 per month for the next 3 months. The same government talking about...
Allow me to jump into that separately. That's
Yes.
a very interesting one where I would also want to have your take
It's
on
something,
it.
yes.
Yeah, but I'm still worried because we have a lot of business, Mr. Mgaga, going on, and many people had listed on the stock exchange. And if it's closed, kaboom, that's it.
If it closes, it means no trades. If it also means jobs are on the wire for the stockbrokers and the workers around that. Yeah. The ecosystem is bigger than you can think. It means no business or meaningful business for your pension funds, your insurance companies. Because remember, when you talk of an equities or a stock market, this is a vehicle for investment for a number of players with a long-term vision or a view of investment. And the implications, the ripple effects, the systemic negative impact of closing a stock market is as good as saying for now we are closing Zimbabwe for business to the world. If we're interested...
All in the name of just trying to stop...
In the name of disciplinary action.
Yeah.
So I think until we get to a point where we sit next to each other on a table and speak without maybe one talking to, they're speaking down to in communication.
Yes.
But at the moment it seems to have been just unilateral communication where decoding is almost non-existent. The noise between private sector, citizens and government in terms of policy making. I wish if the policymakers could listen to this. It's not all well in terms of the behavior which had defined this economy from the time of COVID-19 when you saw this exchange rate pushing or fixing exchange rate at 1:25 in the name of COVID. Imagine in any part of the world, countries, even USA, which was the worst affected, Brazil, Mr. Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil today, is losing sleep with the COVID-19, how he's pushing or killing citizens in Brazil. You will never hear policy measures or instruments like the interest rate. Interest rate, you can try to adjust it in order to increase liquidity in the economy like we had seen. But an exchange rate, fixing exchange rate in the name of COVID-19. I tell you, basic economics, even economics 101, will not allow to behave that way.
Are we running under any basic economics in Zimbabwe, or we are at a level where everyone is just firefighting to see us go to the next day? Do you think we're running on any long-term policy, or we're just saying let's firefight this and let's manage it for now and let's see if we reach tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's a very proper question you're asking there. The knee-jerk reaction. We've got different schools of thought. Some are saying it's justified what government did, especially the last few hours, in terms of shutting the market and shutting the mobile money. But look, this is history repeating itself. Under the then governor of the central bank, Gideon Gono, we had stock market being directed to shut.
I was about to say 21 November is not a very good day for most Zimbabweans. Exactly 21 November 2008, we saw the stock exchange being shut. Are we learning anything?
If we're learning anything, we could have put measures in place in case of future challenges to deal with this challenge.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm quite worried, even if you want to defend the move to say we've got malcontents or poor, wrong behaving individuals in the market. But if history is repeating itself, then that language, what we had been bemoaning to say there's lack of policy implementation and the quality of policy itself leaves a lot to be desired. I think there is evidence. It's so symptomatic of the primitive approach, the review mirror economics, where when you want to make a decision today, like a review mirror of a vehicle, you look in the review mirror and say, where are we coming from? And you start admiring what you are seeing behind instead of moving forward. That's very unfortunate. And I think if we are to learn the hard way, then we have to appreciate that the local currency is slowly but surely slaughtering itself through a lot of policy missteps, which are killing the economy. The exchange rate, we are waiting for the next auction, but the auction for now, it has got its own faults. In the paper which I had done, I think you could have come across that paper. I'm trying to analyze the success or to what extent can the auction system survive in this environment. The auction system, remember, this is a system for price setting, or can we say for price discovery? The exchange rate which had been fixed, now we are saying we are liberalizing it. But to what extent would the few players who will be interested in trading, especially on the auction, be a good reflection in determining what we call the auction or the exchange rate for the country? So there are a lot of things I think we continue engaging our government. As private sector, as Chamber of Commerce, our interests definitely are to see the country.
Allow me to speak like a layman and any other Zimbabwean. I seem not to be in agreement with the way too many things are being done, because I enjoy the right of a simplistic understanding and approach to matters. Why do we have a whole government introducing many systems as far as the Forex is concerned, when we have a clear problem, Mr. Mgaga? We are setting rates, like you've been saying, or we are instructing rates for each and every single week, fixed or liberalized. Do we have that problem of rates, or we have a problem of us having foreign currency in Zimbabwe? Because I'm looking back at all the measures. I've not seen a single monetary or fiscal policy that is giving us direction as far as where we are going to get our foreign currency. Everyone is giving us rates on who is going to be selling at what rate. Right? What if I need to buy? I'm a business player. You represent the biggest commerce umbrella in Zimbabwe body. How are businesses operating? So I've got 20 million in my account. I've got 5 million in my account. I need to exchange this to any Forex. Is there any form of market official where businesses are then liquidating their RTGS for Forex? I need to understand this. And is this not what we're supposed to be preoccupied with? Instead of us just worried about what is your selling rate? Who is selling it to me? Because everyone is buying. I think that's my biggest challenge. If I need to understand this, how has it been for business?
Yeah, in simple terms, just like the barem seeker where you can buy your tomatoes, the foreign exchange auction system you're talking of, it's just as good as that. So what happens is, if you are sitting on your RTGS balance in your bank account, it's your right as a citizen of the country and through the forex exchange auction to go and say, I want to liquidate my Zim dollars so that I get US dollar or hard currency to import whatever you want. But the trick also is, not any deal can go to the bank and say, I want foreign currency. Remember, there is an import priority list, where for you to be considered a bona fide recipient of that forex, you need somehow to be closer to what is considered to be the priority goods, be it raw materials, be it medicals, be it, for now with the drought, the food subsidy are seeing. But that alone, it can create its own challenges, regardless of coming from a business. What can I say give appetite to business to import even raw materials is the policy environment. When the policy environment is very uncertain, the appetite even of big corporates to trade in the black market is elevated more than the appetite to import raw materials, because they'll be seeing a lot of challenges which will not make sense in them somehow importing the raw materials to say, look, after importing my raw materials, I'll produce. Because the moment you attempt to produce, the policy will not be on your side, maybe. Electricity might not be there. The cost of funds when you try to go on and borrow, even the US dollar denominated salaries. Right now, you remember I hinted on the COVID-19 allowance in US dollars. It's just but evidence of an economy which is dollarizing. So if you look the outlook in the next 1 year, I won't be shocked that the economy will be like what we had seen in 2009. No bills will ring. No government or an individual citizen has got the wherewithal or the power to stop dollarizing when the market is making its moves. But the market.
But why are we resisting this? If it looks like it's the best way forward, why is our government resisting dollarization? When ultimately it looks like it's the only way out possible.
No, government is resistance of dollarization from a rational point of view is quite justified. But it's justification versus realism which we are dealing with here. When I say it's justified, don't have much of hard currency right now to use US dollar, for starters. Secondly, US dollar use on its own, it can somehow stand on competitiveness. In other words, if Zimbabwe is to start using US dollar now and you want to produce, you will never be able to compete with a South African or Namibian company because the cost base of using US dollar to produce naturally it's high.
Yeah.
And I think you know the strength of the US dollar. Yeah. So when you're using a strong currency, in trying to sell your goods outside Zimbabwe, they will relatively be higher in terms of expensive.
That brings the second basket of option. Why are we not? Why are we using the rand? And why has this been so difficult for Zimbabwe to join the rand union?
The difference is the same, but to join the rand monetary union also, it's not a walk in the park where you just wake up and make a decision to say I want to be part of it. Prayer government has its own demands. Some of the demands are what we are failing to achieve domestically without even knocking the Pretoria government's doors. I think our problem in Zimbabwe, Tondera, is nothing to do with currency. Currency is just but a reflection of the simmering challenges this economy has. When we had the same US dollar we are talking of in 2009, it disappeared before our eyes in 2015-16. Why? Because we started printing our own US dollar in this country. Counterfeiting the US dollar in electronic balances. Yeah. So that's when you start seeing the problem with production. Right now, if you go downstairs your offices, almost everyone is a trader. No one wants to go and farm. Everyone wants to sell bananas. Everyone wants to sell tomatoes. Everyone, so once you have a country where even the youthful generation, no one has time to go to the farm. Everyone wants to sell the produce. So the supply side of the economy, you look, is dwindling. Then you look at the skills level. Then you look at the financial service sector itself. I think you see most of our banks, they don't have appetite for young entrepreneurs. Most of the people starting business. How many banks are willing to loan you money right now? They will not for a number of reasons. Some of them to do with interest rates. Yeah. With inflation beyond 750% per annum. How much interest should a bank put on its loan to you? And can you afford it? If you then can't afford, already there's what we call financial disintermediation, where banks are no longer playing that role which they are supposed to play. So we have a lot of factors, a lot of, can I say, militiating forces going against having our own currency. Also militiating against having any currency you think will be the best for the economy. But the reason why people might choose the US dollar is for stability, not necessarily growth. Yes.
We are going to be taking a short break in the next few seconds, but just before we go to this short break, I just need to understand something, Ms. Mgaga. You understand these finance issues better. We have a huge audience there watching us on social media. I need to understand, we have never had, I think since 2008, a formal Zimbabwean dollar, formal rate for our currency, where you wake up and you know, well, fine, if it's going to be trading, it's 1:14.3, 1:40. I know it fluctuates. Why is this so difficult? And I need to understand something. It looks like we now have the bond note, and the new currency that has been printed is not bond note. It looks like it's an actual Zim dollar, but without being written bond note. Make us understand there. Sorry to put you on the fix. Are we now using an official currency in Zimbabwe? If we are, why are we not trading at a certain non-rate with other currencies? Why is it that we are busy trying to fix it? If there's COVID, it's 25. If there's no COVID, then we use this funny system, and it's not predictable. What's wrong with us when all other countries have got a predictable, non-listed, internationally trading rates? Where are we missing it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for now we can say where we are as a nation, at crossroads, everything is almost wrong with us. Why? Just now we are trying to list that there's a bond note, there's a ZW dollar, there's this and that. All that doesn't necessarily matter whether it's called bond note or what. If it was acceptable as a medium of exchange, or even as a store of value, or even as a unit of account. Accountants, when they sit right now, sitting and looking at your financials, there's a problem of the hyperinflationary economy and the currency conversion issue. So you can't look at the financials of a company and make a decision. Why? Because the currency we are using already is a confused currency. So to answer your question in simple terms, the reason why we'd lost our currency is because of the gargantuan appetite to print money. When you print money, naturally it creates inflation, the rise in the price of goods and services in general. Right. When price of goods and services rise, your money then loses value because you need more dollars today than you needed yesterday. That's what we are having. And when you print also more money, it means the value of your money in relation to the foreign currency or US dollar, which we are calling the exchange rate, it will be disrupted, because what keeps your money intact is the ability not to continue pushing the amount of money in the economy up without growing the economy. So for Zimbabwe, the economy had been going down, or at least the money supply or amount of money is going up. So in the process, it creates that exchange rate disruption, inflation. So that's the reason why we are not seeing that stability.
We are going to be taking a short break, where we are going to be coming to you back in the next segment where we are talking business. We are so much honored and excited to have the CEO of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Takunda Christopher Mugaga. We'll be back in the next few seconds after the short break.
Shut up.
Once more again, we are back from our studio. This is Tech Business first ever episode that we're having here, and we are so much honored and excited to have the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Christopher Takunda Mugaga, whom we have right here, where we are talking Zimbabwe business and understanding the economic landscape of this nation. Thank you so much for this moment. Once more again, Mr. Mugaga, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are talking a lot of things that has been happening. I know, especially because it's our first show, there's a lot that has been happening, and we are trying to touch all these things. We'll be definitely happy to have you back. But in the interest of time, I need to jump into your document, and I'll quote you. There's a very interesting segment where you were analyzing your document there, and I find it to be very interesting, where I need to put you a little bit on the spot there. You had a place where you had the pessimistic and the pessimistic forecast and the optimistic forecast in your document. Please, without us necessarily dovetailing into the politics of this nation, I just need to understand, you had a very interesting segment where you spoke about the political dynamics in Zimbabwe, the pessimistic and the optimistic one, where I'll just quickly read through. You said the weakest opposition, the weakest opposition politics in Zimbabwe since the question of MDC, internal fissures. I don't want to get into the politics, and then the optimistic of it, and then you said, where you mentioned also the possibility of where Nation Chamisa can also try and help around the economy. I need to ask you a very unfair and rather difficult question. As far as our economics is concerned, I've once said this question as well to Prof. Mtuli. Your take from the business side. Do you really think that Zimbabwe has to have the best policies to fix our economics? Or should I say, in percentages, how much of our politics needs to be fixed to fix our economics? Let me try and repeat my question. Maybe I wasn't very clear. Do we really have a bigger political mess that we need to be fixing, or we have a bigger economic mess that needs to be fixed? Do these things talk together, and how do we fix this problem?
Yes, I think the coin is just one coin. Politics on the other, economics the other side of the same coin. So I think Zimbabwe is a very clear case study of how politics can be a cancer to any prospects of economic development. You had seen with the setting up of the GNU, Government of National Unity, in 2009, how Zimbabwe became one of the fastest growing economies in the world, which was evidenced by the political settlement where the two major protagonists, the late President Mugabe and Prime Minister Tsvangirai, came together to form one government. I think you appreciate it had its own dividends. And you look at most countries even in the world, you'll see wherever politics is in bad shape, wherever there's no democracy, there's a correlationship with GDP growth, which will be going negative. So in Zimbabwe also, I can't certainly run away from the fact that politics had remained one of the elephants in the room, which is not giving room, especially for credible, independent, and at the same time maybe sincere policy moves. And unfortunately, most of the time also when policy measures are announced, people are easily polarized to the extent that they take a side to say, where do I come from a political angle? Unfortunately, that alone had been a problem for this country.
Mm-hmm. So another very unfair question that I need to pose to you. I just need to have an assessment from you. As a nation, if you speak with politicians, they are so sure that if we fix our politics, our economics will fall in place. Do we now need to do a lot of efforts in fixing the politics? Since it looks like we've done a lot of policy amalgamations as far as our economics is concerned, do you think we need to go and first fix our politics and then our economics will fall in place?
Yeah, I think what's more vital is for democracy to thrive, for the issue of respect for property rights to thrive. It's also important for tolerance to thrive. When you have such a combination, naturally, you see the economy taking its shape. Most of the investors, you actually see, one of the major reasons why they can't trust a country, why they can't trust investing in a nation, is simply because they feel like there is no rule of law. They'll feel like maybe the politics is not friendly to them. So you certainly can't separate politics from economics. And Zimbabwe is a very clear case of how politics had also destroyed this economy. Since 1980, I think we had seen politics of just mudslinging where the winner take all, and in the process, you will see people are even labeling themselves. It's either you are from this part or you are not. There's no nation which moves with that. You can't afford that. You go to United States of America, November, early, elections are coming. But when it comes to economic policy, look at Steve Mchini, who is the Treasury Secretary. You look at even the Reserve Bank Federal Chair of the... You can't even relate them to politics. Whoever is going to prevail in the elections of USA, in terms of Trump or Joe Biden, that will not affect the technocrats in office. But the winner take all we see in Africa is whoever wins the election then will also change office of everyone, including those in the economic policy making. So unfortunately, and that's a disaster on its own way. So then you start wondering to what extent can these appointees be independent to serve the nation more than they can serve whoever is appointing them. And I think it's a good question. We are feeling the impact of that lack of independence in Africa, Zimbabwe included.
Yeah. Let me take you back in Zimbabwe. Still hanging around our political environment, we had a lot of hope for the current dispensation, especially just after the elections, with the mantra Zimbabwe is open for business, where we had lots of people, business players, including our erstwhile enemies. There were prospects that they were going to boom up Zimbabwe. And here we are now, fast forward to 2020, 2 years down the line, it's like we have done a crashing lending. What have you done wrong?
Yeah, it's quite interesting to equate it to crash lending. It's quite interesting. But yes, I traveled to Lilongwe after the new dispensation in Zimbabwe. The language was also Malawi is open for business.
Okay.
You go to Rwanda today, even major business channels, you hear Rwanda is open for business. So this was a mantra which was not only unique to Zimbabwe. It's important to contextualize that. It was certainly not unique to Zimbabwe. But what was more important was for us...
Somebody did copyright to the Zimbabwe is open.
No, not necessarily. It was quite open. But
right.
What's more important is to appreciate that we had a chance to redeem ourselves from the 37 years, especially under the former government, where economy was always coming after politics. It was always politics. Anyone, including our colleagues who look back and try to rewind to 2000 elections, who still wonder how Zimbabwe can attract investment when you couldn't respect, if especially the will of the people. That was the thinking of the investment world outside there. Right. But regardless, I think for our country, we certainly failed to take advantage of the goodwill which was coming from the international world. There was need for structural reforms in a number of areas. The corruption which continues dogging this economy. I think you had seen just few weeks, if not just last week, health minister at this hour, that's the last office which you would want being associated with corruption. When the world is losing lives through COVID-19, then that same office, you hear a minister is accused, let alone, let's not worry about whether prosecution or whether it's corrupt or not. But for you to face charges of corruption when you're holding that office, it's evidence that you are not ready for the office. So, definitely, I think as a country we can do better. We had failed dismally to deal with the pillaging, the level of corruption in the country, which is not a secret. You talk to the anti-corruption body, they also bemoan lack of systems to push for evidence. You hear they are saying, look, we need prosecuting powers. We are too weak to deal with corruption in the country. But corruption had remained an elephant in the room for this country. If it is to move forward, the president is to move where his overalls and deal with corruption without looking at who is corrupt, but dealing with the evil of corruption itself. At the moment, I think you had seen even arguments with no evidence of cartels. The fuel situation.
Yeah.
I tried to look back and I realized during the Christmas, the festive season of 2019, the same challenge of fuel we're having it up to now.
Yeah.
Now, how are they trying to solve the problem? You hear we are going to solve the fuel problem by making sure the fuel price are going to follow the auction rate. Surely, auction rate is a new auction. Correct. And we want to believe convergence will come with time. But the moment you set an auction and say, oh,
have a challenge of pricing the fuel, or we're having a challenge of sourcing the commodity because of lack of forex. Well, what is our biggest problem as far as the fuel is concerned? Does increasing the price of fuel to $100 a liter solve the unavailability of a product due to forex strategies? I just need to understand, because I'm of an idea that we don't even have the forex, and increasing the price in RTGS will not make the forex become available in our market.
You'll be shocked that Zimbabwe monthly consumes more petrol and diesel than Zambia, which is a bigger populace, and possibly the economy is much more growing in terms of GDP faster. So I think I gave you an analogy of a service station which has dry pumps, but few meters away there's fuel. So for us to argue to say there's no fuel because of forex, I think we will not be honest to each other. Once the price is correct, and once you liberalize the market for fuel, because at the moment I think the oligopolistic nature where we've got few players who are allowed to import fuel, it's a haven for corruption, one. Secondly, more expensive than fuel, so people have to pay. Then I had to follow up the argument. I'm told since 2013, the ethanol had not changed from its price. It's only fuel which has changed. So the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Agency ZERA is arguing and also confused why people are surprised that ethanol is priced that. But the argument is ethanol had always been at that price since 2013. But that's not the issue. The issue is we have agreed that if you look at the cost build-up of our fuel, the excise duty, Zimbabwe continue using excise duty or take excise duty from fuel. It's a major revenue source for the fiscals.
Yes.
Regardless, at least give fuel market a chance by liberalizing it, allowing many players to come than for Reserve Bank to continue holding on to the pace and say, we are holding to this pace so that we'll talk to the fuel dealers to import. Liberalize the market. You can't continue creating an unnecessary section of people who access fuel at a very wrongly priced exchange rate in the name of saying it's an important product for the nation. That has been corruption. So our position had been clear to say, look, if we are to move forward, liberalize the fuel market. Anyone who has got foreign currency, allow them to import it.
If it's liberalized, that means that anyone who's got the forex to import the fuel can and will be making it available on any service station. Correct. But now, here's the challenge. Let's say they've liberalized the fuel system in Zimbabwe, and now fuel is now selling, it now lands at around $1 pump price, and somebody needs to cover up for the expense and everything else, which then maybe may push fuel to be sold at about $1.20 to the consumer. Now, the government maybe fears to say if fuel then lands at $1.20 USD, that means our market is not going to be able to sustain that, and that will drive a serious internal problem, because they don't even pay anyone that much, and Zimbabweans, they don't even earn that much to then buy fuel at $1.29. Hence, they control it, give it to a few people, sell it at RTGS 25 cents, 38 cents, and now 80 cents.
Then you remain a government of shortages. If you remain a country of shortages, if the thinking is we want to make people afford something regardless of how much it is going to cost. That's I think basic knowledge should teach us that market forces of demand and supply will apply. And prices, why are people fearing that they will be too high? Once demand and supply are allowed, there will always be a convergence. In other words, there's a certain price where both buyers and sellers are willing to exchange.
Correct.
That's the equilibrium price.
Yeah.
That's what you will discover. But the moment you start fearing to say, no, I can't sell maize at this price, I need to put a subsidy. I can't sell fuel at this price. And I can't also, that's the very genesis of our problem. In other words, that is packaged as populist policies. Because what you want is to see people happy with a certain price. What's better for you to buy fuel at $120 Zimbabwe dollars a liter, or getting it at $57 a liter when you can be guaranteed of getting it at 120? Because at the end of the day, you'll see at 57, most people will not find it. It's a haven for corruption. And being a haven for corruption, the very same people we've got unbridled, clear, easy access for forex from the central bank. They import the fuel. They are the people who are selling it 40% pump price, 60% black market. The same beneficiaries. So the only way there's evidence that for you to have an economy which progresses, allow the market forces to operate. The moment you don't believe in the market and you always see market failure throughout and you want to have your hand, I tell you, the problems we're having of fuel until December with this culture, they will not go the queues. Those who have got the forex right now, get the fuel. Those who are willing to buy in the black market, they will get the fuel. But if you are looking for that fuel which looks handsome to an average person for him or her to afford, then I tell you, it's going to be a long winter and it's going to be a long second half of 2020.
Let's speak about cushioning and making things look brighter and good for our people. I need to draw attention to the recent pronouncement by government where it offered civil servants 75 USD for their salaries for the next 3 months. There's a lot of talk around this issue. You are an economist, and please break this down to us, especially when we're now receiving information that it's $75 inside the Nostro account, but you can't withdraw it, you only swipe. I'm thinking, okay, where do you swipe FCA a value of $700 till it's out, and why are people not allowed to withdraw it if it's purely, truly USD? I just need to have your comments towards this issue.
Yeah, of course, it's speculation. Everyone is worried. Why? We are not necessarily worried only because of the availability of the hard currency to support that 75, but we are also worried because of the whole government sermon on how we should maintain a mono currency. Just a few months. So that level of policy flip-flop where today you want a mono currency, the next time every shopper is got a sticker where you're saying, you've got a US dollar, bring it because of COVID or what. You don't run an economy like that. So, I mean, look, it's quite very unfortunate, but like you rightfully raised it, the $75, they're saying you don't necessarily have to withdraw it in hard currency. The argument being given is we want money to continue in circulation. Seriously? Well, policies are correct. Even if someone withdraws $10 million US, it will still circulate. as long as the policy environment is not toxic.
Yes.
So the issue of saying we want it to be circulating, I think, is a hollow statement, which a serious person will certainly not swallow. But look, it's worrisome that even if you're talking of $75 per month, the capacity of government, firstly, to deal with that 75 might not be there. Secondly, the intended recipients of the $75, they're saying they want more than $500 US dollars per month. So the pressures on wages going forward is too high, to the extent that one, with the COVID-19 impact, where Zimra's target of 57 billion Zim dollars for the year will not be reached. Government expenditure is going out of hand because of the inflation, the pressures. You look at the basket for a family of 5 going beyond 8.2 thousand Zim dollar. And look at most people, especially in the civil sector, how many people are earning that amount, regardless of it being little money? Very few. So the pressure on part of government remains very elevated. But the only sustainable means to deal with that pressure is not to over-promise, but is to over-deliver. Because in the medium to long run, when you deliver, you're going to achieve what you want to achieve.
We are in a hyperinflation environment as far as our rates, especially the biggest problem that the government is trying to fix right now on our forex rates. I need to understand, Ms. Mgaga, you're understanding what exactly is pushing our forex rates. They are at 80 today, tomorrow they're at 85, day after they're at 90, and there comes the RBZ saying we do not even have this much in circulation. Mobile players, they've got artificial money that they're injecting, which you cannot account for as the government, and you need to stop these systems. What is really driving our forex rates in Zimbabwe? Because they keep going high, and you're talking of an 8.6 thousand bread basket in Zimbabwe. We're still going up. I'm sure that's the figure for this month. In the next 2-3 months, we're talking of maybe 16,000 per each and every single family. What is driving our forex rates this crazy?
Yeah, it's a plethora of factors. You really can't pinpoint to say this is what is really driving. Both monetary and non-monetary factors. But the monetary factors, printing of money. Sometimes you think money supply is growing at a slow rate, but when an economy is nose diving almost to 15 to 20%, like the first half of 2020 because of what we are having, the pandemic, you're bound to have inflation because the economy is not growing. Any dollar you print for an economy which is declining, it's inflationary. So generally, money printing had been one of the major reasons for the rates to move in the parallel market. Regardless, then confidence.
How much money are we printing? If maybe approximation, how much is in circulation, how much have we printed maybe within the last quarter?
Okay, maybe just to bring the point home, you'll see just maybe in a week, in a space of a week up to around 19 June, you'll see we had money supply growth to almost 600 million. Just 600 million growth in a week's time, if you look at the recent figures. But regardless,
this one RTGS?
This is reserve money.
Reserve money.
Yeah,
okay.
This is reserve money. But the argument then is not necessarily just looking at one factor, because we can talk of reserve money. I think let's not get deeper into, for listeners, in trying to but it's money supply in basic. Let's say money supply has been growing. You see, year to year growing by more than 300%. So that alone is going to give room for headway growth in the exchange rates, especially in the parallel market. Then secondly, confidence and trust. When you no longer have confidence in the policy-making culture in a country, you take a position. So you see even most of the shops, because they are buying their forex in the black market, they price recovery pricing, replacement pricing, where they know next week the black market rate might be higher without it being higher. It's just a perception, expectations. That alone also drives rates.
So it makes them price with that.
Because those shops will get into the black market looking for forex in preparation for next week, creating unnecessary artificial demand. It's a problem alone on that. And a plethora of other factors, just lack of confidence, especially in a local currency, can create its own risks. Some of them just not believing that the exchange rate is fairly reflecting the value of your currency because of policy flip-flops. So it's a number of factors which are creating this.
Sorry, I've asked you this question before. I'll ask you again. Do we have any form of business player in Zimbabwe that can walk up and say, I have a genuine business that I'm doing, I've got 10 trillion or billion or million RTGS, can I please have 10,000 USD, whatever rate? Is that happening in Zimbabwe currently? Are people, companies, business players able to do that from the Reserve Bank?
Yeah, possibly. I think without much evidence on it, the only evidence we can try to use to remain professional is to say when you look at the bids, for example, for the forex auction, some were bidding at 100, the lowest was bidding around 25. So those with the war chest, that power to bid at a higher rate, especially when you're sitting on RTGS, they are there. I think the mobile money transfer you just hinted on, the issue had been on agents, saying, look, we can't have a digital trail. What I know is daily, the mobile money through their trust accounts, they report to the Reserve Bank on the returns, and they try to reconcile with the eco cash balances or the net one money or all that.
Money balance, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now, when you start hearing issues of the central bank arguing to say we are no longer able to control money supply because someone called an agent is able to create that money outside our purview or our powers, then it becomes worrisome. In other words, it seems in an informal economy where almost 75% of the economy has become informal, such tendencies are natural. They're expected. Because when you say an economy is becoming informal, technically what it means is your ability to set policy direction has been limited because most of the people are now operating underground because of a number of reasons.
So it is quite true that we've got many other players who are creating new money into the system.
There's no evidence, but there's a possibility. The reason why it can be possible, there's a difference between evidence and possibility. But the reason why it can be possible is also because of lack of trust and confidence in the policy environments. Yes.
Let me draw you quickly to your document before we close this show. I know it's been a long one. We want to speak and have a projection on our Zimbabwe GDP. In your document, you say that our GDP forecast, the pessimistic forecast, you said GDP to decline by 12.5% in 2020, 4.8% in 2021, and 1.2% growth in 2022. Your optimistic forecast says GDP to decline by 6.5% in 2020, 1.8% in 2021, and 2.3% growth in 2022. Let me just delve in your optimistic forecast. Do you still focus the growth in your GDP?
No, definitely it's a 6.5% negative in the optimistic, but it's guided optimism, let me call, very cautious optimism, given the pandemic and its impact on the economy. For a country at a very low base like Zimbabwe, if we had all the plans to grow this economy by putting right measures, it's easy to record a significant outstanding jump if you are coming from a very negative or low base like we are having. But 6.5% growth for an economy which is already in tatters like this, a 6.5% GDP decline. Remember, it's a decline, it's not a growth.
It's negative, yeah.
Yes, it's still not a small measure by any stretch of imagination. But certainly with the lockdown extension, domestic demand collapsing because of informal economy. Remember, the biggest driver of effective demand right now in this economy is the informal sector. You go to most retail shops, the big giants in town right now, they're almost empty. People are wondering why. They underestimate how informal economy became the driver of this economy's GDP, how it had become a driver of this economy's effective demand. So yes, with the continuous lockdown and the extensions which we are seeing which don't have an end, I think it's quite very possible that GDP decline can be beyond even 10% for the year.
Just before we close this, I know we've been having you for a very long time. Your advice, if you were to advise those in policy making and policy shaping in Zimbabwe, what would you rather advise them to do so that Zimbabwe starts to move from this economic doldrum?
Yeah, I think what is quite significant is to understand that if you look at a ship or a boat, for it to move forward, it needs water. If you look, when you see any ship or a vessel, you look north, you look south, you look east, you see water. But the same waters, once they get into the boat, it will sink.
Correct.
But it needs them to move. So it depends on where you're standing when you're looking at our challenges. A defeatist attitude will look at it and say, this water is going to be a challenge that I can't move forward. But our greatest betrayal as a nation, the lack of sincerity when we are building policies. Politics is too loud in Zimbabwe to the extent that sometimes we forget that 90+% of our citizens, they don't care who is at the helm in a nation. What they care about is the bread and butter issues. And if we can learn to appreciate that, I think you'll see Zimbabwe will move forward. Accountability, we need institutions which are accountable. Where there's corruption, for people to have confidence in what is happening. Prosecution, incarceration has to be happening. Those are issues we want to deal with. And lastly, I think production. Zimbabwe's production levels had gone down. You look at the yields for just maize meal, 2018-29, 0.57 tons per hectare. That alone can tell you that no, things are not well. We need to move out of the cocoon where we are, where we hope one day we'll just have a miracle through a certain program to do with agriculture without dealing with the yields, which are an issue. Because when yields are low, it can give you evidence that skills are not there for whoever is holding land. Trading is not there. It can also give you evidence of possibly people having vacated or deserted land to focus on trading what comes out of the land. And in the process, you start importing today. Zimbabwe is importing gelatins. Zimbabwe is importing tooth nails. Zimbabwe is importing rolls for tissues. We import almost everything. Don't worry about the quality of soil we have in the country, the skills. Look at the literacy rate, plus 92%. But there's nothing to show for it. We continue admiring what comes out of the country, and we need to deal with that urgently. If we are not to, definitely, it's easy to say we are doomed.
It looks like we've been, sorry, you just brought me something interesting. Are we an agro-based economy? If you were to drive our economy, there has to be the major driver, the major pusher. Do you think that agriculture is the main driver for us to come out of where we are right now? You're understanding what resources do we have here that should push our economy much more better? Yeah,
but look, with technology, digitization taking over, I think for a country to continue hanging on to say we are an agro-based, if you look at the structure of Zimbabwe economy right now, you see the service sector is dominating more than anything. Yes, the agro-based, we can't overlook the agro-based nature. If you look at most of our manufacturing companies, almost 65 to 75%, they're agro-processing companies. So the agro-based, the traditional, historical nature of Zimbabwe economy can't be disputed. But it's a digital economy. And with the COVID-19, which hit the whole world, the age to become digitalized and to embrace technology as a driver of economic growth cannot be underestimated. Look at the top 10 biggest counters in the world. You go to New York Stock Exchange, look at the bigger companies, Wall Street, almost 90% of them, they are high-tech companies. It's not any other company you're talking of. So let's look at the direction of the world. It's technology.
I'm happy you're talking our business and our language that we speak about each and every single day. But we do appreciate you. Thank you so much, Mr. Takunda Christopher Mugaga, who's the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce CEO. We've been so much excited and we feel happy to have you and exchange these insights, and hopefully we have more and more continuous engagements on this issue, that we break it down to help Zimbabweans fully understand where we are and why we are where we are right now as far as our economics is concerned. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, and to all our viewers, we do thank you for joining us live right here. We've been live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and to all those who've been watching us, please do remember to hit the notification bell or button so that the next time when you come back live again, you will not miss a single update from us. From me and the crew behind the scenes, my name is Tonio. It's been a pleasure to have you guys. We'll see you soon where we talk tech and business. Thank you.